bit more from you, please, if you don't mind. Yes, scoot in. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Live on Facebook. We're not live on the radio yet. Say hello to Facebook world.
Hey,
Can we turn this monitor down? This one right here. Can this one go down? It's blocking our shot in Facebook.
in our social media.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, it's so much better. All right. Oh, okay, now. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 425 Show, your place to be for all things real estate and lifestyle related here on the East Side. I'm your host, Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate. Happy post-St. Patrick's Day. I hope you guys all had a great weekend and enjoyed the sun. It was beautiful. We had sun and warm weather in March. It was great. I feel much better about Mother Nature right now because we weren't getting along last month, but it's all good. And it's interesting, the sun, that first sunny weekend sometimes works for you, sometimes works against you in the real estate market. As a seller, I talked to some people that had really busy weekends, and then I talked to some that were really quiet, because I think that first sunny weekend is when people decide, you know what, I can find a house another week, let's just go play. So I think that happened to some people. So if you're a seller and you feel like your activity was a little light last weekend, don't take it personally. People were out enjoying the sun. But today's real estate tip I wanted to share with you as we get into the nicer weather is we are coming into spring break season. I know Lake Washington's break is the second week of April, and if you are not on the market already, definitely that should be playing into your strategy of when you come on the market. I'm advising all of my clients in the next couple weeks is let's sit down and look at whatever the spring break schedule is for your school district that you're in, and you want to make sure that you don't come on the market that first weekend of spring break, especially a year like this where we kind of had a crummy winter. It motivates people to head out of town to sunnier weather, even though it might be sunny here. So anyway, make sure you're talking about that with your agent. If you have more questions about the market and timing and how to maximize that for yourself, feel free to reach out. You can always find me via email, nicole@nicolemangina.com. And as we talk about spring break, I think it's the perfect segue into our guests for today's show, because usually we start going to warmer weather. People start thinking, there might be some shorts involved. We had a whole conversation before the show about pedicures and whose toes are ready for public viewing. Mine currently are not.
Oh, I'm ready. Mine are.
Benny,
we're good.
Benny's good. He's going to the beach tomorrow. But usually I think a lot of times what starts off is, I want to lose a couple pounds. Turns into, especially as we get older, you realize there's a lot more to the story, whether it's genetics or body type or emotional things or other things that drive that. And I think as also we get older, at least for myself, the weight becomes less important than the overall health of someone. So we've got the gals from Crave Health here today to talk about just that, because it seems like it's good timing. So I'd love to introduce everybody. We've got a full house. We've got Jessica with us this morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Lyda.
Good morning.
Good morning. Cassie.
Hello.
And Megan.
Good morning.
Thanks, ladies, for being here to talk about this.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, so let's dive in. Tell us a little bit about what Crave is all about, because you definitely approach things differently and more thoroughly than most, like, hey, I want to lose 5-pound places.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I'll speak for myself because we all practice a little bit differently.
Right.
So I work with functional nutrition.
Okay.
And so I assess the person as a whole, and there's usually some additional testing, vitamin and mineral testing, as well as some genomic testing, which can really dive into what your genes are doing, how they're helping or hindering your goals.
That's great. So what amazing information to have.
It's so cool. It's personalized nutrition, and I love the science involved with it, and I'm kind of a biochem dork.
Okay. I'm imagery nutrition, so I'm totally into all
I
this stuff.
love it. I love looking at people like, check out what your enzymes are doing, and then people look at me, and I'm like, oh yeah, tone it back.
So can I eat carbs or not? Where are we going?
Exactly. Just give me the details. So it's pretty awesome. I love what we do every day.
That's great. Awesome. Lyda, how about you?
So I call myself like a food therapist.
Okay.
So I'm all about helping people find joy back with food.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people, they go at it where they want to lose weight and they just feel so bad about themselves. They step
Right.
on the scale. They just go, how am I supposed to improve this?
Right.
So they start to treat food like it's an enemy, and guilt and shame, and I'll hear things like, I'm going to cheat. And so I just say, all right, let's get that off the table.
Right.
How can we bring joy back to food? Let's work with the food that you do enjoy. It's not ever not going to be possible to get rid of that food forever.
Right.
So I really like to live a life, and I like to help mine live a life of 80% healthy. If you can
Perfect.
be 80% healthy and allow for 20% not, you're golden.
That's pretty
So
good.
That's kind of my philosophy.
I love it. That's great. Cassie, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm a mental health counselor, and I work with health as well, but I also work with anxiety, depression, stress,
Mhm.
families, teens, adults. Kind of do a wide variety of things, but I do have somewhat of a specialty in eating disorders as well. So I work with anorexia, bulimia, emotional eating, binge eating. So it works great at Crave Health, so I can work in tandem with a dietitian, so our client can see a counselor as well as a dietitian, and I work a lot then with the emotional side of things, helping people
Right.
to understand their triggers for emotional eating or binge eating or restricting, whatever
Mhm.
it might be, and helping them to establish new coping skills so that they have a different tool to employ instead of using food or the lack of food to manage how they're feeling. And so it works great for us to both be on the same page around we're trying to establish an overall balance and also something that's realistic for your life. And then for certain clients, they really need to recover from the disordered behavior with food. So there's a lot involved. It becomes very complicated. So the mental health side of things is really important to understand why you began to interact with these behaviors in the first place in order
Right.
to get to a more healthy place with your behaviors, habits, food, etc., body. Yeah.
I love that, and I love that you're involved in all this because it's often a much bigger, deeper
Yes.
thing
Most
than
of the
people
time,
realize or want it to be. And so I think really the lasting change comes from not from did you master not eating carbs and
Right.
picking
Right.
carbs
There's
and
no
left
quick
carbs.
fix,
but,
really.
but there's more to it than that, right?
Yes.
It's mastering these understanding, mastering, learning how to change these underlying things that
Yeah.
really make the biggest
Mhm.
difference long term.
Right.
Yeah.
Building a foundation that will support your healthy habits.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. And I think I would imagine it's something that, a lot of that stuff pops up. People aren't expecting that when they go
Yeah.
into the process
Yes,
with you,
absolutely.
right?
Sure.
We always have to have the tissue boxes always
Yeah.
full
Yes.
all the time.
I'm sure there's lots of surprises along the way for people like, who knew that was an issue?
Yeah.
It's going to come up.
Well, and actually we can look at that through somebody's genomics and see
Really?
where they might need somebody like Cassie's help.
Really? It tells you
Yes, because sometimes people don't have enough serotonin, or
Okay.
And so they might have not have enough receptors for that serotonin. So those
Got
are
it.
people who have more addictive behavior, and so
Oh,
they might be addicted to
interesting.
carbohydrates to get that serotonin.
that? Got it. And the serotonin, remind
It's
us,
that
is the
feel
calming
good,
one. Right.
calming, and then it goes down to melatonin, which is that relax and go to sleep.
Right.
So they're all tied in, but if you have been coping with this,
Right.
and you've been looking for ways to cope with this, and you've been using food to do that, or
Right.
maybe something else to do that, you need to reset that. You need to have help from a counselor to kind of work through that.
Right.
So,
I love that. That's very cool. I love how it all works together.
Yeah.
Good
And
deal.
I was going to do a little personal confession too.
Yeah.
So with my genetic makeup, I have two things.
Uh-huh.
One is I have the overweight gene, and I also have the sweet snack gene.
Okay.
So it's kind of fun to be like, okay, just because you have those does not
not
mean
Yeah.
that
Because
it's
you're tiny and incredible shape. You're like the furthest thing from overweight.
so it's a good to be like, okay, just because you have it doesn't mean that is your prescription for life,
Right.
which is a
Yes,
nice
absolutely.
way to be able to be like, okay, but now I know, and it's absolutely true. Sweet snacks are my thing for sure.
I kind of, yeah.
But
I'm like, oh,
it's
yeah.
like
I
I
don't
try
know
to
that I need a
manage
test
it.
for that.
Right.
But that's great, and that's a wonderful testimonial that to realize that. Because I have to admit, for me, I'm like, I don't know why am I going to do this testing, right? I don't know if I need this information. It might be too much information, but to know that it's a guidepost and that there is somewhere, it's not a sentence, right?
It's-
It's like,
yeah,
this is how
absolutely
this whole
not.
thing's going to play out. Just
and just because
this
you
might
have
be
it
how we can support you better.
doesn't mean you're expressing it.
Right.
So just kind of think of in the back burner, okay, this could potentially be
Okay.
problematic.
Got it.
Doesn't necessarily mean it is a problem.
It's
I
distant.
also have several genes for overweight.
Do you?
Tendencies.
They're also fit.
So it's about those choices that you're making on a daily basis, and that kind of 80-20 rule,
Right. That's
how you're
great.
balancing all that.
Yeah, I love it.
Really helpful for exercise too.
Yes.
When I did my genetic workup, I benefited more from doing weightlifting versus like a lot of cardio, that wouldn't really help my body type. And so
Okay.
it was really interesting for me to shift my exercise that way. It's really
Cool.
helpful, yeah.
All right, I'm fired up to go get. I'm like,
It's-
let's take a
it's
test.
cool.
All right, Megan, let's chat about what you do, and then we'll come back. I have more testing questions.
I'm a registered dietitian,
Okay.
but similar to Lyda, I consider myself more a nutrition therapist.
Okay.
I also specialize more in eating disorders, but I do work with clients if they need to come in and focus on some weight loss. I do have a background in that. And I like to focus on, kind of my motto is, it's progress, not perfection.
Okay,
Because a lot of
yeah.
people come in and just assume that they need to be perfect, and I think in the
Yeah.
eyes of, sitting in front of a therapist, that they need to be perfect in front of us.
Right.
And their meal plan has to be perfect, and they need to have perfect weight loss and so forth. So I like to emphasize that it's making progress, not perfection. A lot of what I like to point out with clients is triggers and so forth.
Right.
So, are we eating because we're hungry, or are we stressed, are we lonely, are we bored, are we tired?
Right.
And I think once we have that data for them, it's helpful for them to understand why they're eating.
Right.
And then therefore we as the therapist can help them find other coping strategies for that other than food.
Yeah.
Because all this time they were always just assuming, well, in the evening I'm always eating.
Right.
And I think I just have a sweet tooth. For the majority of it, they probably do have a sweet tooth. The testing could probably prove that.
Right.
But maybe it's because they had a stressful day, or they have some anxiety, or in all.
Other kids are driving them
Their
crazy.
kids.
Yeah.
And I'm finding, especially as a parent, I've realized.
We all love our children.
Yes, we love our children.
Yes,
But
but-
I've also realized as a parent, we're just not good at downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. And we always have to be doing something.
Yes.
And so eating is that. And so I actually challenge my clients to just sit and be, even when they're watching TV. They're like, well, I'll just eat carrots or celery. And I actually even challenge them not to eat carrots
Right.
or celery. Even though that's a very healthy snack, but it's still replacing the M&Ms with something, and just that fixation of always doing something. So just
Yeah.
sit and be. So the movie or the TV should be your entertainment.
I love that. That's great.
And so,
Yeah.
because I think just as Americans, we're always doing, in this generation, we're just always go, 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 go. And so, and I have clients come back and tell me that was actually really, really hard just to sit and watch a movie without doing something.
I bet.
Yeah.
And they'll even tell me, well, what if I learn to knit, or do something with my hands? I actually even tell them, I don't want you to knit while you watch a movie. I don't want
Really?
you to do a crossword puzzle. I just want you to sit and watch the movie,
Right.
or the TV, or the TV show, or some such. So, because we're just multitasking all the time. So, again, I challenge my clients to really find what their triggers are in regards to the weight loss.
Yeah,
and
I think
why
that's
they're
great.
choosing the food.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting, especially in our society, right? Rarely when we eat are we eating because we're hungry, or it's
yeah.
like there's so many other
Absolutely.
triggers. Just for the eating, and then the foods that we choose.
Right.
It's really all of this stuff, right? Whether it's genetics or mental or emotional, what you have going on. It really has very little to do with, hey, I'm hungry, this is what my
Well,
body
and I
needs,
was
right?
going to add one thing too. All four of us have daughters. And that has
Really?
completely
Oh,
changed
all
my
boys.
perspective.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Like, it's changed my perspective now that I have a 10-year-old and starting that whole body checking thing.
Right.
And now that I see that I'm not just doing this for myself, it's so important that I show my daughter how proud I am of my own body,
Right.
regardless of its lovely flaws, because I don't want her to start that whole process, right?
Yeah.
So
That's the
Beautiful.
hard piece about some of these diets that, we have good intentions with these dietary changes, but when you're at your home and you're talking to your significant other and you're like, we can't have this, it has so many carbs in it,
Right.
and you're saying that in front of your kids, they're looking at this piece of fruit thinking, oh my gosh, this could be problematic for me.
Right.
And so we want to be super careful. I have 3 girls myself, so
Yeah.
we want to be really careful about the verbiage I'm using around food and the choices
Yeah.
that we're making around food. And going back to that distraction piece, that TV piece, just being in front of the TV, and we're going to consume, I think it's like 30% more.
It's a lot,
It's
yes.
a huge difference. So, I think bringing that awareness is a really important piece.
Yeah, I've read that before, that we're always multitasking, not always, but like the majority of the time multitasking when we're eating, and you really
Yeah.
should just sit and eat.
Yes.
I have to admit, I read a lot when I'm eating, right? If I'm by myself, right, not at family dinner, but
Right.
if it's just me, I'm not usually watching TV, but I might be reading an article or something like that, which I know I'm not supposed to do.
But you might not have your kids around, and
Yeah.
you're thinking, this is my time for myself.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to then stop and say, well, I'm not going to look at my phone or
I know.
my whatever.
But I am amazed when I do that and I'm done, I'm not full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I haven't paid attention to what I just ate.
Yeah.
There is definitely, I know there's a difference, doesn't mean I do differently.
Right.
It doesn't mean I'm at least on
And
it
that's
that
where
much.
the support comes in.
That's right.
Yeah. Right?
And progress, not perfection,
Yeah.
right, Megan?
We're not
Oh, well.
perfect either.
And that's something I like to point out to my clients too, is that, because again, I think they come in thinking, well, how perfect we are.
Right.
Gosh, I must eat mindfully. I probably eat mindfully, and I don't eat in front of the TV, and I only eat carrots as snacks, and I don't eat sweets. And so I make it very real for my clients, in that I give, probably as a therapist, too much forthright.
Mhm.
But that's just my way of therapy,
That's great.
because I like to build that rapport and make sure my clients feel very comfortable with me, is that I share my story, I share my real reality with food and my real struggles.
Mhm.
I absolutely love cake, and I let them know that I love cake. And so that there's just that reality
We
that
love to eat.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that
I
I
know.
love to eat. I love food. I chose this profession
Mhm.
for one of the reasons, because I love food, and that I struggle with it daily too. So that they just don't think I'm high up on this pedestal and that they're down there. And
Right. I think that's good, that's important,
I do
yeah.
it on a personal level too, so that there is this common ground between us.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's great, that's
to,
important.
to add on to that, if you look on social media,
Mm-hmm.
we always see people being completely perfect. We always see them so
Right.
put together, and they look beautiful, and I think that's great, except for the fact that we're not put together and perfect at home all the time.
No.
And I think that showing who you really are can be a very important piece, because you don't want them to come into your office and feel ashamed. You want them to feel comfortable and safe and
Well, like you
welcome.
understand what they have
And
going
like
on.
you understand.
Yeah, for sure. One of my girlfriends commented, she goes, all your pictures are so nice. I'm like, well, I just don't post the other ones.
Right.
They exist, they
And
just
that's
don't
the
get
truth,
posted.
right? Like, ooh, we're gonna just take that one to the side.
They're still out there. So what does the testing entail? Is that like a blood test, or how do you do the
Oh,
testing?
so with the genomic testing, it's a cheek swab. So you
Oh,
actually
cool.
just take
That's
a
pretty
long
easy.
Q-tip and you kind of go around your
Yeah.
cheek a couple times. You can't have eaten for like an hour beforehand,
Oh,
because
that's
it picks up on the
Yeah.
food that you were
Mhm.
eating. And then you send it in. It takes about a month to get back.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, you can do some more additional biomarker testing, because
Got
going back, even though you might have a genomic variant or SNP, which is single nucleotide polymorphism,
Well
for
done.
those people who care.
Say that 10 times fast.
Oh, no, thank you. So we want to see if it's actually expressing, and so that's
Got
when
it.
we would pull up the vitamin and mineral testing, and there's
Okay.
a couple different places that we test through, and then we can say, okay, yes, we should supplement you with vitamin D, or yes, you should be on X, Y, and Z supplements.
Mhm.
And it takes away that guessing of, well, maybe we'll put you on this supplement, or maybe we'll put you on that supplement.
Yeah.
And then we always try to go diet first.
Got it.
We don't want to be reliant on supplements all the time.
Mhm.
We want you to be really making dietary changes, making
Right.
sleep modifications, working on self-care, getting enough time for yourself and relaxing, maybe meditating,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of going to the supplements as a support.
Got it. Okay. I love it. If you're just tuning in today, we have the gals from Crave Health with us. We're talking about all things diet, nutrition, mental, and emotional. Kind of get you dialed in. So if somebody's out there listening and they're thinking, okay, I need this, how do they get started? do they go to a website? Do they call you? What's
we
their
have,
next step?
Cravehealth.com or is it
Okay.
Crave-Health.com?
Crave-Health.
Crave-Health.com.
We'll have it on the website after the
We
show.
have,
We swear we will.
yeah, we all have a bio on there, so you can read a little bit about each
Got
one
it.
of us and
Yeah,
call and
because
ask.
it's so personal who you're going to
Yeah, you
identify
can
with, right?
call and also just get more information,
Great.
or email us directly, and we can get you set up. So we all do kind of different scheduling and stuff, but you
Mhm.
can get in with multiple providers if you need to, and
Right.
kind of combine the nutrition with the mental health as well.
I love it.
Mhm.
And
you
we
guys-
also have one male
Yes,
dietitian.
we do.
I
who's
saw
awesome.
that.
He's
Bob.
great.
Bob is
Yeah.
great, and a lot of people
Love
think, oh, well, I shouldn't see a male. Oh, absolutely. He is
Yeah.
spot on with his information, and he's also great with sports nutrition, which is something
Yes.
that the rest of us
Bet.
don't really cover that much. So
Oh,
it's
interesting.
just, we feel like we've got all different areas, but I wanted to do a shout out for Bob.
Yeah,
no,
she's
and that's
Bob's
great. I
doing-
love the sports nutrition.
Yeah, he's great. And he's practicing more functional nutrition as well, kind of
Got
similar
it.
to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he hones in so well. Like, if for those people who really want to have like their macros dialed in,
Mhm.
I feel like Bob is on top of that. He is just the person to go to.
Right. Cool. That's fun. That makes me think of my boys. They're big baseball players, and the
Mhm.
oldest
Yeah.
is in ninth grade, and we're constantly just like, I don't think he eats enough. Right?
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, you need more food. This is the
Right.
stage of your life, you know. And now I'm in my mid-40s. I'm like, just embrace it. Eat everything you can. Right? It's like scaling back a little bit in the portions. Like, you should just enjoy every bite. But making sure he's getting enough and getting the right things to
Yes.
fuel
Yeah.
his body, because it's, you know, it's different when you hear from your mom versus someone
Totally.
else.
Oh
but
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
to get it, you know, especially when they've got those long school days and then they roll into a sports activity right after. I think he needs more than the little granola bar he's getting.
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So, okay, so great. People can go to the website. And I love that all of you kind of have your own twist, take, flavor on it as well. Because
Yeah.
it's such a personal thing.
Absolutely.
And do you often, I would then imagine, have people that work with more than one of you at a time, maybe like a dietitian and a,
Yeah,
do some
yeah, we
counseling
share
as
a
well.
lot of clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works really well, so we can all be on the same page. If they have certain emotional triggers around certain foods, then I
Right.
can communicate that to the dietitian so that they have
Got
a
it.
strategy around how to deal with those certain foods. Or if a lot of our clients have fear foods that they're just
Right.
extremely afraid of, so we work in tandem to try to figure out what's the best approach with that.
Oh, interesting. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to eat them? Or?
Yeah, they're just, for whatever reason, they've been brought up to think carbs are evil, or
Oh,
sugar
yeah.
is bad, or they're on an extreme way of thinking of only these foods are healthy and all these things are
Oh,
bad. So you have
sure.
to break down that like black and white mentality and help people
Yeah,
get
that's gotta be
like
fascinating.
slowly reintroduced to
Right.
foods
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
awesome.
One of the philosophies I have too, which is I don't take foods out as much as try to add foods in.
Yeah.
Because if you add in a lot of the really healthy stuff, chances are by nature, by default, you're going to eat less of the other stuff.
Yes.
So it's not about taking foods out as much as I hope to incorporate the foods that are just going to make them feel better too.
Yeah, and I love that approach. That's
Yeah,
great.
taking foods out also is very triggering for people. They feel very deprived.
Yes.
If you
Right.
feel deprived, you will find a way to rebel against that.
Mhm.
You will sabotage yourself there. So I like to do that as well. Try to find a way to have what they love still
Right.
in their diet somehow,
Yes.
but finding a tool to help it be more balanced.
Yeah, I love it. I was smiling as you were talking about black and white and
Yeah.
foods and stuff.
Yeah.
We're big on the gray area in our house. As
Oh,
my youngest
good.
tries to convince me every day that Oreos are vegan, and therefore we're gonna be in his lunch daily. I'm like, well, anyway.
He probably has a sweet snack gene.
I probably. So that's all right. But it's
Yeah.
fascinating. Our oldest, I'm amazed by him, and I just think it's actually beautiful. He eats really small meals all the time. Even his dinner is never that big, and he'll eat dinner, and then he'll come back like an hour later and eat again. And as a mom, I was kind of like, why aren't you just eating your dinner? Right?
Yeah.
You should eat more. But then I realized actually that's really good because he knows how to self-regulate, and he knows what he needs at any one time, and then he comes back when he needs. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's how I
Yeah.
worked my head around it. So
Yeah.
I'm annoyed that he's not eating his dinner all the
Absolutely.
way.
He's probably in tune. with
Yeah, he
his
just knows
hunger,
what he needs
fullness,
and-
and his cues.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
he's he seems to work it out. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think it is important for the kids to, as parents, we want to like, no, this is the way it's supposed to be,
Right.
and we kind of bull over them with good intentions.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, because we want the best for them, and you know, standing back and kind of letting them figure it out. I think is awesome.
Yeah, the other option might be better for him. At least
Yeah.
right now, right?
Yeah.
Could
Right.
change. He's 14. Lots
No,
of change.
being a dietitian and a mother has been the most humbling experience.
Oh, I
Yeah.
can only
Everything that my
imagine.
clients were like, oh, Lida, that is such great information. My kids are like, oh, no way. Not interested in whatever
Do you
information
like see
you've
each
got.
other's kids?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's all I do is be like, sit them down.
What did your mom make you eat last night?
Right?
Your mom is the best mom ever.
And do you do remote sessions at all, or do people have to come into the Crave? You do?
We do remote, yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, pretty much. And I actually, it's funny, I do clients that are, sometimes they'll do virtual sessions where we do FaceTime or something, but I actually enjoy the phone sessions a lot because
interesting.
there's something very confessional when you don't have to look at somebody.
Right? Isn't
And
that the
so
truth?
those phone sessions are just, to me, very impactful for the client as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
good then. Whether it's a schedule thing, a logistics thing, location, or just, you don't want to look somebody in the eye
That's
when
right.
you fess up to the
Amazing. I'm like,
last night.
that's really deep. We should get a therapist for that. But yeah,
Oh.
it's some good stuff. Some
Hold
really
on,
good
let me
stuff.
conference somebody.
That's
in.
right.
I'll bring in Cassie. She's got it. Awesome. Thanks, ladies, for being on the show today. I learned so much. I'm like, oh, we all need sports nutrition, we need testing, we need all kinds of stuff in our house. Yeah. Again, we've had Crave Health here on the show with us today. We'll have the links to all of the individual bios for Cassie and Megan and Lida and Jessica on the website after the show, as well as how to connect with them. You can always reach us, NicoleMangina.com/podcast. Thanks again, ladies. I'm
Thank
sure we'll see you
you.
here on the east side, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Good. All clear.